forward to this.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Geeknd Live. It is Obi-Wan Kenobi, as named by Glenn the Geeky Hippie, logo created by Jones Capone, both of whom are in the chat tonight. I can see already. We're going to talk Obi-Wan Kenobi, Episode 4, Part 4, and I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm also sure it's going to be spoiler-filled. So in the next minute or two, if you're avoiding spoilers, you're going to want to leave the room. Like, not this room. If you're in my room right now, please leave, actually. But just leave the stream. Leave the stream, but hit the like button before you do one. The point of doing these streams later than most is I'm a pretty chilled guy, but also hopefully it gives as many people a chance to watch the episodes as possible. So hopefully there's not too many people who, if you're going to watch the show, I kind of feel like you've seen this episode by now. It's been out for nearly a week. We do have a guest, as always. We were supposed to have two guests. We have one podcast being represented, Star Wars Sessions, regular on the channel. Two hosts, Matt and Luke, only one of which will be joining us tonight. You'll find out which in a moment, but a couple of quick hellos in the live chat. Also, hello to the future. If you're watching in the future, hi to you, and drop us a comment if you wanna. All right, I'm in the chat now. Jones Capone was here early. Glenn the Geeky Hippie as well. Chad, the Stopwatch Campbell. Brian the Geek. Wow, I might actually be here live for the whole show today. This could be a modern day miracle. Yeah, well, you know, it's the beginning of a miracle. Let's see if you can complete the miracle by remaining for the entire show. Let's see what happens. Jane Flakes, hope you're doing good. Also, Explaining Computers, Chris, who kicked off our Obi-Wan Kenobi coverage, which feels like a long time ago now. Chris, hope you're doing well, and greetings to you, David Milano, who's also contributed to the Obi-Wan Kenobi with his lovely little video clips. We'll be playing one of those later, depending on my mood in regards to Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 4. Clays is here as well. Hello there to you. Chad's doing his job. He is the stopwatch. We aim for 30 minutes. To be honest, we've been fairly close. I think we haven't gone above 40 anyway with these Obi-Wan Kenobi chats so far. But Chad's, it is his job to keep us to time. He fails 100% of the time. Powerdroid Girl is here as well. All right, then. As always, keep the chat going. I will be coming back and forth from it, but I'm going to bring in our guest now. And we are just a hello there away from spoilers, people. Hello there, Matt. Matt Hudson
hello
from
there.
Star Wars Sessions podcast. How are you, mate?
Jamie, I am so good. I'm so glad to be back here again with yourself. We here at the Sessions, we have a saying. It simply says, we love Jamie Stangram. And it's just me today. Luke had a last-minute event come up, but we weren't going to miss this for the world.
Well, he did, but you didn't.
Of course. There you go. Look at that commitment, hey?
Yeah, thank you. No, but no, Luke is a good excuse. It's all good. Glenn, just noticed that you have changed your name, but I just saw your profile picture and thought, hey, it's Glenn. We'll come on to that later, though. Anyway, Matt, thanks for joining us again. And, you know, we have got the better half of the Star Wars Sessions podcast here. That's the most important thing. For anyone who's meeting you for the first time, for those who already know you, give us a brief explanation of the podcast and also what have you guys been up to recently in terms of the podcast? I don't want to know about the other stuff.
Oh, no, I won't tell you about the other stuff. That goes off air. But Star Wars Sessions is a weekly podcast all about Star Wars where we talk about the latest news. We have deep dives on characters, scenes, sequences, films. We get guests from the films or TV series on. And recently, we've been doing, similar to you, Jamie, we've been doing Obi-Wan Kenobi recaps where we can't wait. We're impatient. We watch the episode, and within about 3 hours, we have our spoiler-filled review out.
Wow.
Which is usually very excitable or very glum. But that's how we like to do it on Sessions. It's very organic, like the show itself. It's kind of ride or die. Let's jump on. We might listen back in a week and think, oh, man, we really missed out there, or don't agree with that anymore. But it's our unfiltered, family-friendly opinion straight off the bat. So, but no. We've been doing it for a long time now, and we always have a good time doing it. So if you want to jump on and listen to us, every Wednesday we have a new episode.
Cool, man. And I have linked to your main website, which kind of links to everything. And I also think your Twitter's in the video description as well. So in terms of whether it's happy days or I think somber, moody days, as you described it, or to paraphrase you anyway, just a moment ago, just generally stay off part 4, episode 4 for now, just 1 to 3. Generally, what's the vibe been on the Sessions podcast in regards to Kenobi pre-episode 4?
Really enjoying it. We always like to preface and say, yes, we love Star Wars, but we look at things as objectively as possible. However, we're really digging the first 3 episodes, at least, of Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's a few flaws here and there. There's a few issues, maybe visually, some of the chases that everybody seems to go on about. But at the end of the series, I'm not going to look back and think, oh man, how did little Leia outrun those goons? I don't care. The fact is, the story's good, the acting's good, the characters are good, the development's been great. Seeing the returning characters like Obi-Wan and Vader has been fantastic. The Easter eggs are great. I mean, it's bridging that gap between the OT and the PT so well, but still feels fresh and new. What isn't there to like? I know there's a few people who have issues with the series, and that's totally fine. But for us, we're just along for the ride and having a good time.
Cool, man. That's good to hear. No, the chases are terrible, but I think they're minors. They're minors. You wouldn't fail your driving test over those minor little faults there. That I can certainly get over myself. And yes, Chad says in the chat, true story to those in the chat. Glenn and I once got breakfast together in the real world, real life, and called Jamie, who was not there in person, to celebrate it. That was still cyber. They called me, and I can confirm that is a true story. I was in Mexico City at the time. I got up on a Sunday morning earlier than I had to talk to Chad and, well, used to be Glenn. Now he's Obi-Wan Kenobi, hippie pun lord. All right, let's get on to part 4. This seems to be certainly, in terms of what I'm seeing on the internet anyway, perhaps reaction-wise. But then again, sometimes the negativity is louder than the positivity. But anyway, there seems to be a lot more negativity towards this episode from what I'm seeing on the internet. What have you observed yourself?
Certain sections of the internet will always find something to complain about with Star Wars. That's just a given. But I try to ignore them as much as possible. I'm here for debate and I'm here for opinion, but back it up with something constructive. As for this episode, I feel there's a lot of people who've seen this as a filler. I think they were disappointed that we didn't get more Vader or maybe even more Obi-Wan Kenobi. But I think this episode was important for pushing the story forward. I understand some of the criticisms that are coming out, but I think I was worried that this episode would be called filler after watching it, also because it's only as good as 30 minutes long. But in our sessions verse, for the most part, it's still pretty positive.
Yeah, I to be honest, I did enjoy this episode. It is my least favorite of the 4 so far. I personally don't think it pushed the story on enough for me in a 6-part series. I feel like there's a lot left to do now in the last 2 episodes. And if they're only going to be 30 to 40 minutes long, there is a Rise of Skywalker edit ahead of them. It could be a mess. It could turn into 2 series. That's a rumor too. Well, I think there were some great moments in this episode, but seeing as we're past the halfway point of this series, I did want it to progress more. But then again, we got exactly what we were alluded to at the end of episode 3. It was clear that Obi-Wan once again had to go and rescue Leia. So it was no big surprise that was the main crux of the episode on one hand.
Yeah, no, I just wish I think that they could have potentially done this episode differently, which is maybe an obvious thing to say. Maybe Leia didn't need to be captured at the end of episode 3, which then makes this one, part 4, feel like, a riff on part 2, which was Leia is captured, Obi-Wan has to go and save her. Obviously, in this episode, part 4, they are now showing us that Kenobi's up for the fight. Before he wasn't up for it, but now he gets out of that tank and he's like, right, where's Leia?
His mojo back as well, didn't he?
He's got his mojo back, and it's pushing forward the idea that he's getting his mojo back. He's ready to take the fight on, and he's connecting with the Force more and more. But I think there were other ways they could have gone around showing that, and I think your point is pertinent. I don't disagree at all that this is part 4 now. We're 2/3 of the way through. We've got 2 parts to go. I think part 5 now is crucial. I think part 4, when it ended, I think they need to drop Leia back on Alderaan straight away. And I love Vivian Lyra Blair in this role. I think she's crushed it as little Leia. But I think now this part 5 and 6 has to focus on Obi-Wan and him, Vader, and him trying to connect to the Force. I think it needs to take a drastic swing that way now, which would then, in hindsight, maybe strengthen these episodes for those who maybe weren't so keen on them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected from the series, and it's okay not to get not to get your own way. It's okay. I think perhaps like The Mandalorian, you sometimes have to see these series as old style TV serials. There will be their kind of self-contained episodic episodes, but I think they do have to knock it out of the park in terms of giving us what we want. I feel a lot of people, rightly so in a way, feel like Hayden's been pretty underused so far. You've got to reserve judgment, of course. There are 2 big crucial episodes remaining. Considering there was a much fanfare when it was announced that he was returning, and he pretty much led the promo for the for the series along with Ewan. You kind of expected a bit more from him, and there are like as is often the way, there are a number of Vaders behind the scenes in this series. We're only probably getting Hayden so far when he's in his Bacta tank, when he's got his helmet off. The rest of the time, there are 2 other Vaders, one of which I believe is doing the full body shots, because it's like huge, and the other's doing the majority, if not all, of the fight scenes, of which there's only been 1 so far. And I say only, I actually feel like we've got way more Vader than I ever expected already.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I honestly did not expect to get much from him until maybe the penultimate episode, and then the big duel of the century in the final episode.
The rematch of the century, as Kathleen Kennedy called it. That's it. Well, the first one in part 3 was nothing more than just an old school beatdown. Kenobi got it handed to him, and I think that's going to set up the rematch of the century, which is going to be peak Obi-Wan against, the peak in terms of rage Vader. And I mean, my thoughts have always been, Vader, he's this big screen character. He's the largest, larger than life villain. He's one of the greatest villains of all time. And I was always intrigued about seeing him translated to, no disrespect, but the small screen. And I think they've actually translated him well. I think that Disney and Lucasfilm have handled Darth Vader so well since they've taken over. That includes the other films, the animated series, and the comics and books as well. I think Vader's been made to be, that awful, evil, scary guy that we all thought, animal, evil beast that we thought he was. And in this part, him seeing Vader rage down the hall in a way that we've never seen him before. Usually he's quite calm. He sounds calm whilst he's choking someone to death. But here, he's tearing down, screaming. He then obviously comes down again quite quickly. But I found Vader to be quite scary. Like Ewan said before the show started, Darth Vader's pretty scary in this. I think he actually has been. The way they've portrayed whoever is behind the suit, it depends on who you talk to. There's someone different behind the suit. But I heard that one of the guys is basically just there for the sitting scenes, and what a gig that must be. I just sit in this suit and get paid, and I'm Vader.
Yeah, and I'm on the convention gravy train for life now.
Lucky man.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think they have they've nailed it with Vader. He is a horror character in this series. He was for the most part in Rogue One. He was used sparingly in Rogue One, but I think he was used well in Rogue One. The vocals here are brilliant. Because James Earl Jones recorded the lines for Rogue One, and you could tell that he is an older dude. But here, I believe it's the AI, it's the respeech software that they use for Luke. And Luke in Boba Fett, I think rightly so. There was some little minor sort of quibbles that, the voice was lacking emotion. It was quite monotone. But with Vader, it just works so well.
I again, depending on who you read, some people say that James Earl Jones read the lines, but they then fed them through the re-speecher in order to, smooth it out somewhat compared to how it was in Rogue One. Others have said it is just 100% re-speecher, and there's been some who have speculated that Hayden's the one who's doing the vocal performance, and that is then in turn fed through the. Either way, it sounds great.
Yeah, either way, whatever they have done, it's worked out well. But I don't understand why you would need Hayden to do that. You know, like
give him something to do.
Well, yeah, actually, you're right, because it looks like he hasn't done much else. But no, that could change. There's 2 more episodes. I'm just going to pop over to the chat for a few comments, and then we'll get back into part 4 with Matt. And at the end, we'll be asking everybody, don't do it yet, for your scores out of 10. That includes you, Matt. Wipe that smile off your face, all right? You've got some work to do. You're not Hayden. You're not chilling on the sidelines. Right, where am I? I can't remember where I was. So I'm going to start from... here. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Loving the show, even with some minor little quibbles. Look, it's fine to have quibbles. I think the problem is that we turn, and we're all guilty of this at times, Star Wars fans, we turn minor quibbles into major quibbles. Yeah. Some people make a living off it. And, I think we just have to get over things, get canon related. In terms of Leia and Obi-Wan and what it does for the "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope" message. At first, I was okay with it because she didn't know him as Obi-Wan, but of course that's changed now with Reva naming him as Obi-Wan in part 4. We'll see what they do with these next episodes with that. We'll see what they do. I know some people have argued that, well, actually, it's very much a professional, diplomatic message that she's recording for Obi-Wan rather than, hey, Obi,
remember me?
Long time no see. How you doing, mate? And then actually when Luke breaks into the cell to free her dressed as a stormtrooper, and he takes off his helmet, there's the classic, aren't you, a little short to be a stormtrooper line. And then when she says, I'm here with Ben Kenobi, and she's like, Ben Kenobi?
Ben Kenobi?
That's a little bit more personal, and less diplomatic and professional. But anyway, we'll see what they do in the next episodes. If it does break the canon or change, create a plot hole, I think it's going to happen. These stories were set in stone. Were not set in stone, in fact, 40 odd years ago. It's going to happen, and I think we've just got to get over it and move on and just enjoy the present.
Remember Obi-Wan Kenobi himself said, it'll all make sense from a certain point of view. We can make it work.
Yeah. This series thus far has been remarkably pretty, if nothing else. The new Vader Kenobi duel in Lego is pretty shoddy, though. This was much more visually a much more Star Wars episode, wasn't it? After part 3, which was like in a quarry. And yes. Somewhere around Joshua Tree in California for the most part. This very much was, and I've not played Fallen Order. Have you?
I have. I've played through it 3 or 4 times.
So this was probably very familiar for you then.
This was great for me. Watching them running through Nur and the fortress. I was like, this is like the game has come to life. And the cheeky little comment at the beginning that no one's ever infiltrated this fortress. Us Fallen Order fans thinking, we have. Me and Cal, we've infiltrated the fortress. But no, I think it looked great. I think the volume stood up to scrutiny in this episode. For me, the quarry environment didn't quite work for the duel anyway. It was a bit too dark and a bit too small, it felt. But hey, I don't think that was the rematch of the century. Let's see what they do. Next, Chad says not to be that guy. You always are that guy, Chad. But I don't personally think it's bringing much that is fresh and new. Old jaded man meets optimistic young person. Go on adventure. Both leave unchanged. Yeah, I can't really argue with that. But you can still enjoy it, I guess, or not. It's fine either way. Jane Flake says a 30-minute screen time was a bit sad, but there were moments that really lit it up for me. Dave Milano, Kenobi, Ep 4. I'm pretty sure I played this level before. Power Droid Girl. I've observed grumblings at the lack of flashbacks from the same commentators who did nothing but complain about Book of Boba Fett's Boba flashbacks. Yeah, I mean, I think actually it was good use of the Bacta tank. I loved the use of the Bacta tank in this episode between Obi and Anakin or Vader. But if there was going to be flashbacks, of which I think we all kind of assumed there would be, I don't think we were ever told there would be. We just assumed there would be. This was the moment to use them. I feel like we're not getting them now. I think we took Ewan's words at face value when during the press tour he would say, you know, I'm working and there's Hayden as Anakin opposite me, and it's like time never stood still. Maybe we will get those Clone Wars flashbacks in episode 5 and 6, but the question I've been asking myself and our community is, what is the point? Because obviously everything needs a lot, and a lot of your commenters are saying, you know, we need something new and fresh. What would be the point of a Clone Wars flashback if they give us a new scene of Obi-Wan and Anakin in and around Revenge of the Sith, which adds some more context to their brotherhood and their relationship? Fine, but at the same time, what could it add that we don't already know? That's kind of the question I've got. Is if it's a quick one, like if Obi-Wan's thinking about, you know, the past, and you've got like a 10 or 15-second flashback, fine. But I don't really want to see the next episode taken up by flashbacks to a time we've seen before, which may not add anything new other than, hey, cool, look at them in their Clone Wars armor. I'd still love it because I'm a geek and I love Star Wars, but at the same time, I do want them to push forward now with the story without feeling the need to always go back. But then, you know, Hayden is the elephant in the room here, that I, like many people, want to see more of Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader or Anakin. And I know we saw him briefly in part 3 in the robes again, but I think if we're going to see Anakin, either Vader's got to have his mask cracked again, or we're going to go back in time.
And that felt like, from now on, who knows, but it could feel shoehorned now. That felt like a natural point to bring flashbacks in, because essentially they are flashbacking anyway, because they're showing a lot of existing footage from Revenge of the Sith, you know, and Attack of the Clones. I think
they're being quite self-aware as well, which I think they have been throughout the episode. Part 3, when Leia says to Obi-Wan, "Aren't you going to say hello?" And we all thought he was going to say hello there, but he doesn't. And there's been a few moments, and even here where they say quite a few times in that short moment, you know, get the bacta tank ready, prepare the bacta tank, and you see him go in, and we're like, oh, here we go. We're flashing back, we're getting the parallels of Anakin, but then immediately he jumps straight out again. So I think I don't think they wrote it in any kind of response to the Book of Boba Fett flashbacks, but I think they're quite aware that they don't want to make the bacta tank just a device for flashbacks where we all kind of go, oh, here we go.
Yeah, no, fair. Hello to Jorge, who's made it 2 weeks on the trot now, I think, Jorge. Good to see you again, my friend. Hope you're doing good. And Jones Capone says a bit of cheesy sneaking around with some bright flashes of action, mostly video game callbacks. Yeah, it was fun seeing Obi-Wan sneaking around an Imperial base, not for the first time. Hey, you've got a new, it's all been worthwhile because you have a new follower on Twitter, and not just any follower. This is Jorge, who is one hell of a follower. So
thank you, Jorge. You're a king.
He is. He's a top dude. So enjoy his presence following you on Twitter, which sounds a bit creepy. I'm sorry. I've kind of changed. I've adapted what should be a positive situation into a kind of creepy one. I'm sorry for everybody involved. Brian the Geek says, I'm much more positive for this episode than I think a lot of people are. I was just happy to see Obi-Wan finding his old mojo again and seeing Fortress Inquisitors from Fallen Order. Yeah, it was nice when he started doing a little twirly whirly thing with the lightsaber. That was, I mean, that was not subtle, but it was subtle. The kind of gradual easing back in. Well, it wasn't exactly easing back into getting his mojo back. And therefore, you know, it's going to be a much fairer fight, isn't it, when they do meet again, him and Darthy. Jane Flake says the tombs are pretty cool. A big yay for Dead Jedi. And I've been getting because my youngling interview with Ross Beedman, who played Saul's Bandim, anagram of Ross Beedman, the Master Skywalker. There's too many of them. What are we going to do? That youngling, everybody. My interview with him has been getting some traction again a year later. So I've been getting a few views from it again, and also a few comments from it again. And a lot of people saying, hey, you're definitely dead, because we talk about, hey, we don't actually see you die on screen, so maybe your character's still alive. And people were like, no, you're definitely dead now. Watch Kenobi. That's not him.
I think in the credits, one of the little lads from the Order 66 flashback in part 1 has been identified as the one that's in the tomb, based on, I think it's the same kid who plays him. So I think it's one of the lads from the flashback in Order 66 from the first episode. But the interviews are getting more traction, which is great.
Thank you.
In terms of the character, as far as I'm aware, it's the one from part 1. But wouldn't it be brutal if it was old Sauce Bandim who was the one who was strung up in that amber.
But I don't understand, why would they take that one body away, like, and all the way to that planet no, that's it, yeah. Like, because Anakin did all his killing and he was off to Mustafar, wasn't he?
Yeah, there is a kind of, you do have to worry that obviously the hygiene levels on those ships have to be very good if they're just carting around corpses all the time. But I don't know if they were brought there because in Rebels they say they bring Jedi to Mustafar to die basically. So unless Vader sorts them out and then puts them on the first ferry to Nur, which is the neighboring moon, it's right next to it, or unless they're killed in that torture chamber, because that tomb, it leads directly to the torture chamber. So when you're taken there, you've got to walk past this veritable smorgasbord of dead Jedi. And there was one or so in there I recognised, and others which I think were just randomers or may or may not come into the story a bit more. But it was still quite a chilling scene, I think. I think they're really going for it. But people say Disney and Lucasfilm, they're dumbing down or they're too scared to kind of go there. But in this series alone, we've seen people get cut in half. We've seen point blank blaster shots. We've seen someone be thrown through a fire, kids getting their necks broken, people being choked and dragged through the street. And now, dead people entombed, including kids. I was like, they aren't scared to push the boundaries. I don't think
the neck snapping was borderline too much, in my opinion. It was borderline too much.
To me, that shocked me. I know he's a teen, but still, it's like, wow, okay, they're not messing around here.
No. Jones Cohen says, best part of the episode, Vader's angry march down the hall, immediately followed by the worst part, gently setting Reva down on the ground instead of dropping her like he would any Imperial officer. Yeah, true. But, it's obviously Reva's role is not done yet in this series. But Vader did have, I'm not going to say it's fair moments. I mean, if he can see that she still serves a purpose, he probably still intends to finish her off eventually, but if she still serves a purpose for the moment, he's going to keep her alive. And I don't think that's too out of character, to be honest.
No, I think Vader, he respects ingenuity and intelligence more so than anything else. If you see how he treats his other officers or anyone who disobeys or is basically useless to him, the moment she becomes useless, she, like all of them, she's gone. But in that moment when she says, I've got a plan, basically, whether or not that was her plan A. I get the comment, though. She was kind of gently let down, and I know Vader has a respect, but you do kind of think, I imagine he would have just let her go to fall to the crumple to the floor.
You mean literally letting her letting her down gently? Yeah, fair enough. Sorry. Yeah, fair enough. No, fair enough. Okay. I'm with Jones and yourself on that. I'm going to fly through some comments now because we are approaching the 30-minute mark, and hey, it's timely because it's Chad Campbell here. Now that I've kind of accepted this is just a good popcorn show and not a serious character study, this episode didn't bug me at all. I mean, it was a good fun episode. For me, the weakest out of all of them. Episode 1 is still the strongest for me, which could be the closest to that serious character study that perhaps we or some of us expected from this series. There's still 2 big episodes to come. Quint, hello to you. Hello to everyone here from Quint. Brian the Geek, True Glenn. I've just intruded on a conversation between Glenn and Brian. I don't know what Brian's responding to there, so I'm going to move on. But I'm sure it's all good. Glenn says as well, hit the like button, everybody can see it in another comment. Jorge says, I'm sure this show would be fun as a binge watch, although I prefer the weekly slow burn. Yeah, I do. It's too daunting when you got 6-7 hour Stranger Things episodes dropping at once. I need to sleep, don't we all? But at the same time, I'm addicted. But no, I enjoy it. I think I said this recently, maybe on a stream. When Black Mirror first started in the UK on Channel 4, you had these episodes each week, and you had a week to really digest the episode, talk about the episode with people, and wait for the next one. Then when it moved to Netflix, you had it all as a one-er, and you kind of just sort of discarded the episode, didn't really give it much thought, moved on to the next, and then eventually in one evening potentially moved on to a completely different show, and I missed that kind of time, the weekly slow burn, as Jorge says. Hey, Vic, hope you're doing well, Victor. Hoping for a half robot Anakin unmasked fighting. Hey, Hayden's there for. They've made a big deal out of Hayden being there.
He's there for a reason.
Yeah. He's there for a reason. So let's something's going to give. Jones says, hoping the last episode, maybe the last two, are longer, 60 or 90 minutes each, will be a blast and help with the questionable pacing thus far. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot to do now in these episodes. I feel like they kind of have to be longer. Chad is just happy, full stop, that Hayden is back in any kind of way. And obviously they're not done with him yet anyway. There's Ahsoka, which he's all but confirmed to be in. And, there should be a Vader series at some point. Surely, man, you've got that character, and you've got this technology, whether James L. Jones needs to record lines or not. Get him in now to record, the dictionary, and you're fine.
I'll listen to that.
You're fine, yeah. Padua Girl says Vader is being shown as twisted and evil. Just how Ben described him to Luke. Absolutely. Jane Flakes adds, Vader is the reason we love Star Wars. I'm currently my Vader PJs. And Brian, true. I think it's been really nice seeing Hayden get all the love on the press tour. I'm unbothered by Hayden being used minimally on the screen. Doesn't bother me personally. That's fine. And also, we have to reserve judgment on a number of things with this series so far, because there are two big episodes, hopefully big episodes next. Matt, what do you reckon to this? Jorge says or asks, what do you reckon? Second season, it wasn't the intention, or at least it hasn't been advertised as the intention, but now there seems to be a little bit of going back on that, certainly from Ewan McGregor anyway.
Yeah, apparently, according to rumours, some from the very legitimate sources, that they've retooled the finale of part 6 so they can allow for further storytelling. Now, would I want a second season with these characters? Again, seeing Ewan and Hayden, because they're having the time of their life. Yes, absolutely. I want as much time in this era as possible. It comes down to whether or not we need that or not. What would they do? Because if at the end of this limited run, Vader thinks Kenobi is dead, then there's no hunt in a season 2. And maybe it would then be that character study that we all thought we were going to get, and part 1 showed us quite nicely. It depends. I don't really want to see another season of Obi-Wan on the run from Inquisitors, because I don't think that's necessary to rehash the same thing. If they're going to do it, there has to be a story. And I've got to imagine that Ewan, as producer of this as well, exec producer, would only come back if the story was right and if there was a need to be. But I'd love to see it, but I will wait and see at the end of part 6 to see if we get a Obi-Wan will return in 2023 card. But would you want to see a part of season 2?
Would I want to? I need to see these next 2 episodes first. Then I will decide, and I will give Lucasfilm the it's my decision at the end of the day. We all know that. I run this show. But actually, my gut tells me there will be an extension, at least. Maybe in episode 7, 8, and 9. Or
I prefer that than a second season. I know there'll be semantics over, what is an extension, what's a season 2, but if they were to extend this story, so it's essentially, they're not starting again a year later, I'd be up. I think there's room to play there.
Yeah. My gut tells me that there will be something more. Do I necessarily want more? I would come back to that after the next 2 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Let's. And Ahoy actually, he did adapt the question. Would you all like a second season? Let us know in the chat if you do. I can see Jane seems to be up for that. Explaining computers. Chris, I'm enjoying having new classic era Star Wars on the TV every week and liked this episode. Not perfect, but cool to watch. Yeah, I agree with that. It was fun. And Glenn, I can see, wouldn't object to a second. Jorge does say, I wouldn't mind moving on from the OT characters. Yeah, I'm absolutely down with that. And I think, some more. I mean, we've got the Mandoverse now, and we've got Andor, which is bridging us ever closer to the original trilogy. Yeah, I would like some brand new Star Wars, as much as, I'm there for the feels and the nostalgia and the fan service, if you like. But I would love some brand new Star Wars, and I'm intrigued by the lack of movie announcements, and when we will get those
Yeah.
announcements where they will take us, Taika Waititi, Ryan Johnson's trilogy, which I guess is never going to see the light of day, but he would be the perfect guy to go off blank canvas, and create a new part of the Star Wars universe. He would be. Jones Bone says, I doubt we'll get Kenobi season 2 per se, but I do think we have a good chance of great Hayden and Ewan content in other various shows in the works set in those appropriate time periods. Yeah. There is the Mandoverse, as we said, the Star Wars verse, whatever you want to call it now. I would rather not have a second, if only to see Disney commit to letting something sit and be content as is, but I can see a second coming. Hey, I love the idea that Ben has a brother. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be explored anymore in this series, but they obviously were planting a seed there for something, weren't they?
Classic Star Wars, isn't it? They'll throw a line in about something, so they may never ever come back to it, but we know it's there just in case they ever want to go back to it or make a film based on one line. They wouldn't do that, surely.
Frogger's made it all the way from Germany. Welcome, late, but welcome as we begin to wrap up, everybody. So start to get your marks out of 10 for Obi-Wan Kenobi episode part 4 as I just go through the final comments. Hello to Alpha Monkey as well. Hope you're doing well. And Ant's here as well. Hope you're doing well, Ant. Hello there to you, my friend. I might have just skipped a few comments. I'm sorry. So did that thing where it sort of drags me down towards the bottom. Ant says, I like week by week episode releases, gives time to breathe, rewatch, and talk. And boy, does the internet talk. I do want to binge, but liking things stretched out. Yes, time is the point. Yeah, the good thing about the shorter episodes is it's a nice civilized binge at the end of it, isn't it? When you're looking at shorter episodes. Yeah, Qui-Gon we're definitely getting at some point. We're definitely getting something from Qui-Gon at some point. It does seem a bit odd not to get anything from Yoda, but let's see what they do with that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, sadly enough, in the car on the way home tonight, that I wonder, obviously we get the shot where Obi-Wan finds out that Anakin is alive, or Darth Vader is alive, and by proxy Anakin. I wonder if we'll ever kind of get a flash of what Yoda thought in that moment. Unless he knew all along, but you kind of think he'd tell his mate that. But maybe we'd get Yoda, but I think it would be 10 times more impactful for Qui-Gon and Liam Neeson to come back for the in the flesh for the first time since 1999.
Yeah, then that's definitely happening. The fact that he's denied it in so many interviews means it's definitely 100%. happening. And they've been hinting towards it since episode 1, haven't they? Yeah. It's pretty blatant. James Flake says our world is pretty horrible right now, so escaping into Star Wars works for me. More Star Wars is welcome. It is the best escapism. I hope Cal Kestis is a path runner. Also, I need a live action Quinlan Foss. That's from Alpha Monkey there. I am just going to skip through the comments now. Also from Ant, I'm liking this new Star Wars content. Either way, it's far better than the sequels. Boba Fett show wasn't great, but there were chunks I really appreciated. Yeah, it had moments. The Book of Boba Fett for me too. Also, 2 fantastic episodes of The Mandalorian as well. Brian the Geek, assuming there was a good story to tell, I'd be happy to see more Kenobi. Yeah, it should come down to the story. It really should. Hello there from Anders Lay. Just got done with work. Good to hear, my friend, and hope you're there. You were late with the hello there. You're normally one of the first, if not the first, Anders, with the hello there. All right, so I can see the scores coming in, so I'm skipping down to the scores now. One comment from Frogger because he joined late. I like the tone of the series, but I wouldn't know what else they would do with Obi-Wan. I wouldn't, and that's why I say, would I want it? I'm not sure yet. We need to see, or I need to see personally how this ends. All right, then. I think this is the first score. I'm starting from Jane's score. So if there was one before, please copy and paste it back in. Jane gives this episode 9.5 out of 10, out of 12, sorry, because of course, imperial measurements. And we have a 9 out of 10 from Power Droid Girls. Still loving it. A low score from David Milano, 6.5 out of 10. Hang on, it gets lower. I'd give episode. Oh no, I'm looking at the 4, which is the number of the episode. Silly me. It's an 8.5 out of 10 from Brian the Geek, so it's a bounce back up there. But little drop down with a 7 from whatever his name is these days. Used to be Glenn the Geeky Hippie. 7. That's higher than expected from you, Chad. I have to say. It's a low 6 from Frogger. honestly, the last episode was average at best, in my opinion. 6 out of 10 for Jedi on display. Do you mean that you rate the display, as a 6 out of 10? Or do you mean because of the Dead Jedi on display, you're boosting it up to a 6? From a 5, perhaps, because 5 is average. Yeah, 7.5 from Alpha Monkey. From James Caban, Obi-Wan. Oh, okay. I've just intruded on somebody's conversation between Jones and Glenn. 8 out of 10 for part 4 from Chris, Explaining Computers. For me, Kenobi continues to be quality Star Wars. 7 from Jones Capone. 8 out of 10 from Glaze. It's a 9 from Jorge. And they look like all the scores so far. So, let's get yours, Matt. I'm going to sit on the fence for a moment longer.
Don't hurt yourself on that fence. I gave it on the recap, which I'm going to stick with, a 7.7 out of 10 because I gave part 2 7.5 out of 10. I think this one's marginally better than part 2. I think the story progresses Obi-Wan that bit more. We get O'Shea Jackson's character finally. We get to see more of Tala. We get more of little Leia being sassy, but also vulnerable as she's being inquisitioned by Reva. We get to see Obi-Wan get his mojo back, and the little handhold at the end with Leia and Obi-Wan, and that quiet moment was, I think it was beautiful, that bit at the end. And it's little moments, whilst the episode as a whole wasn't spectacular, I think the little moments add up to something maybe more than that. But I'm going to stick it at 7.7 out of 10.
I think time might be kind to this episode. It does need another viewing, I think. But 7.7, cool. I am giving it apparently an extended cameo from Jorge's. 9 out of 10 has been on screen for a while now, but hey, it can stay. I'm going to give it, and I do remind people that it's out of 10. 5's in the middle. 5 is therefore average, and average is okay. It's not bad. I'm giving this my lowest score yet, 6.5 out of 10.
It's not bad still. That's not bad.
No, it's above average, man. It's above average.
My wonderful, handsome, well-groomed, like Jamie, my co-host Luke, he name dropped your thinking there on our last recap about, 5 is average. Anything above that is better than average, and that's not a bad thing. And so we reference your line of thought regularly because it's true. 5 out of 10 isn't bad. Not everything has to be 10 out of 10 to be great anymore. And not everything's a 1 out of 10 because we didn't get a Clone Wars flashback. I think 6.5 is still a very decent score.
And it's the lowest I've given so far. I mean, I've been pretty generous, I would say. So with that in mind, I am going to play a new clip from David Milano because I've played the best one. Obi want more of that clip each week. I'm going to play this one this time. They're kind of, I
have a bad feeling about this.
But I feel like that's almost a little bit too negative because, again, 6.5 is above average. And I still...
Hello there.
I still want more of that. I am still excited for what's coming next. I still feel like there's a lot of potential that hasn't been lived up to so far with this series. Maybe it's just potential I've created in my mind and I have no right to ever receive it, but I still think there's so much that can come from this series. We can't say that we were promised, but I still think it still needs to deliver and can deliver in so many ways. Chandler says, I basically come here to like the stream, but I can't watch yet because I'm waiting to binge the show. Fair enough, mate. Hope you didn't get any spoilers, but thank you for just popping in for a cheeky like. And just some final comments. It was really cool seeing you back in action and so in actual Jedi robes again. Yeah, looking good. Chad says, Jamie, I feel 6.5 was the highest you gave Bad Batch. Yeah, and again, I'm not being like negative. It's above average, man. I think I really love the pilot. Really love the pilot of Bad Batch. I'm sure that got more than 6.5. All right, everybody. I am going to read from Spiky Mike 123 because I haven't read any of your comments yet. I was a bit disappointed that Reva didn't open up about her backstory in this one. I feel like I need to understand her Obi-Wan motivations more. Obviously, this should be sorted by the end of the show. Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think you're right. It will be sorted by the end of the show because she opens the show, presumably in that flashback, Order 66 flashback. She's there. You know, there is a backstory that we haven't quite been told there with this character. And I have, and I think you might have alluded to this earlier, Matt, I tend to avoid leaks and what have you, but I did stumble across something that apparently, and if you are completely avoiding leaks, which may not be true anyway, leave the stream in 3, 2, 1. Apparently her ending has been changed in this series to perhaps give her the potential to be continued.
Yes, I have heard that her ending has been significantly changed to basically allow her to continue within the story. Again, I don't know what that's based on, whether that's how happy Lucasfilm are with the character or with Moses Ingram, who I think is doing a fantastic job. And if you're here to insult any of the actors, then we don't need your type here. But I think she's doing great, and I like the character of Reva. It comes down to whether or not they have a story to extend this with. You know, is it reactionary, or was this kind of part of the plan where, hey, look, we can end it at 6, but if people quite like it, we can retool and get 3 or 4 more episodes on the back of this. I think with her knowledge, you know, if she just roams free at the end of it, that could be, again, in terms of canon breaking. I do think she may need to be out of the picture by the end of it. But I'm enjoying her character so far. And on the comment there, her backstory, her motivations, or how she knows who Anakin Skywalker is and all this. We've only got 2 episodes left to wrap up Obi-Wan Kenobi, let alone wrap up, you know, Leia, Reva, anybody else. We've got to, I don't think we're going to get 60 to 90-minute episodes because, you know, Disney have shown that's not in their wheelhouse, despite the fact that they can do whatever they want on Disney Plus. But that's my biggest fear going into 5 and 6. I'm always optimistic as much as I can be, but I'm also a realist. My biggest fear is, are they going to stick the landing satisfactorily? Are they going to wrap up these current ongoing threads satisfactorily as well, and make these things which are quite big to us fans, like, you know, Darth Vader's identity? Are we going to get a decent backstory there, and also find out more about Reva? Because the one thing I do think that they are lacking on with the character of Reva is they're stretching out her motivation. They're stretching it out. We know she doesn't like Obi-Wan, but I'd like to know a bit more about her. The other Inquisitors, they just turn up, they sneer, or they talk in a very deep tone and don't really do an awful lot either. The Inquisitors, I love the look of them. I love the feel of them. I do wish they'd done a bit more. All we really see them do is, you know, Reva cut off that lady's hand in part 1. And other than that, they're just bouncers, basically. I'd like to see them do a bit more.
Yeah, no, the so-called Grand one died, although he'll turn up again in another series. Yeah, the Inquisitors have been a bit lame, to be honest. Yeah, but no, Reva, I think Moses Ingram has been great. And I was here for Obi-Wan and Anakin / Vader. That's why I was here in this season. And I'm here. I'm surprised that we have had so much screen time, particularly actually in the episode just gone, with a new character in this series. I'm surprised by that, but they've established it, and yeah, there needs to be some kind of expansion on the backstory, and perhaps, you know, tying up the loose ends as well. But like you mentioned, there's a lot to do in these last 2 episodes. I mean, hey, what about Princess Leia? What's going to happen to her? A lot to tie up there. I mean, you know. No, but yeah. So one more point, because it's the longest one. Yeah, 48 minutes. It's your fault, Max.
Sorry.
Tanner Henry asks, Jamie, what did you think of how Obi-Wan's lightsaber bounces off of Stormtrooper armor a few times in the episode? I didn't really notice this at the time. It was more on Twitter and what have you afterwards, and then there was a bit of, obviously, a Twitter scrap going on over it, and then somebody actually shared a slowed down version of Luke, the famous Luke scene at the end of Mandalorian season 2, and his lightsaber was just going through crates, you know, like imaginary, you know, so that wasn't perfect either. I didn't really notice it at the time. So you did, Matt. It stood out to you.
I did. Don't worry. I won't elongate this point, but I did. The first time it's when Obi-Wan is taken out. I think it's one of the 2 stormtroopers when Leia's in the torture chamber. He kind of swipes at the stormtrooper and it hits him sort of in the chest here, and it kind of, you know, the stick bounces off, and then he does it again. And I think it comes down to, you know, I think people want to see, you know, the stormtroopers getting their arms lopped off or sliced in half and whatever. And I know I mentioned earlier on that this show is, pushing the boundaries somewhat, but I still don't think we're going to see Obi-Wan slicing people in half. But for me, it was quite noticeable. But maybe we're finally getting justice for that Stormtrooper armor, and it is stronger than we all thought that it can initially resist a lightsaber. Or it was just, it's just what happens in production, and it was just something they went with.
Yeah, I don't know if this makes a difference, but they use different kinds of lightsabers now in production. Yes. It's not the metal rods anymore. It almost looks like the ones you can buy, the really expensive ones you can buy, Chris from Explaining Computer says, saber bouncing was inevitable. George Lucas was clever to make droids the bad guys in the prequel trilogy, so allowing the Jedi to cut them apart. But here they have the problem of Jedi fighting humans. Yeah, a fair point. As well. But yeah, now when people mention it, it's like, I mean, that scene, that was really cool, the darkness and then the light of the lightsaber coming on looked so great. At the time and I'm watching this on my laptop as well, so I'm not getting the big screen experience at the moment. I didn't notice it in the moment. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up there because Matt has rode in here and conquered. He has won the award so far for the longest stream in Obi-Chat Kenobi. It's probably as much my fault and yours in the chat because there's been a lot going on in the chat tonight. So that's great. Thank you, everybody, for taking part and for joining again. I'll be back on Monday. And don't forget to check out next Monday with Chapter 5 or Episode 5 chat. Don't forget to check out Star Wars Sessions podcast if you haven't already. Matt and his co-host Luke are doing the business week in, week out. There's a link to their website and Twitter in the video description. Matt, thank you for joining me. Send my regards to Luke. And thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great week. And we will talk this time next week. But 51 minutes earlier, because that's how long this stream's been. Thank you, Matt. All right, everybody. You know what you got to do now? You got to start waving, all right? Because I'm about to hit end broadcast and we have the awkward lag. So I'm going to do some final comments and I'm hitting end broadcast now. So keep waving, everybody.